Hello.
Hi.
Hear me, my dear?
Praveen, you're not
Hello.
audible enough.
So I hope I am audible. So
എടാ
yeah. So today we are going.
എടാ നീ എന്തോ ആക്കി കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട് എപ്പോ ശരിയെന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ നീ നിന്റെ
Hello.
Continue, Praveen.
Okay. So let me start. Today we are going through HRM as the next subject. So we are going to start with block 1 of HRM. So starting from the first, right? So let me give you the overview of how HRM is organized, HRD is organized. If you can just go to the overall blocks, click on that HRD link, and then we'll go to the unit wise anyway. So the way that it is organized is, first thing is, first block is all about human resource planning, right? The entire subject that we are actually talking about is, we are talking about HRD, that is human resource department. Okay. So now it has got the first and foremost thing that they have is planning the human resource. So the things like this particular block covers like, okay, how recruitment is planned, how talent is planned, how you are going to actually forecast what kind of human resources that an organization require. All those kind of things is coming under this block, where we are talking about how this HRD, human resource department, is planning their human resources, right? The second one is about management. Okay. So now the first block is about planning, right? What is the pipeline, how they are going to how you are thinking that, okay, I'm going to recruit 1,000 people from this particular skill, etc., etc. All those things are planning side, right? The second block talks about steps. We are talking about managing human resources, right? So how you are going to train them, how you are going to sensitize them so that they can multiple cultures prosper in a pure global organization, how things really work out from the human resource point of view. Again, this is human resource point of view, but this is on the management side of it. It is not planning. So now you have employees, how you are going to manage them, right? Next part comes the loss. So when we are talking about humans here. So what it means is, there are n number of laws which are governing these humans, right? There are rights that people carry. There are, I mean, these rights could be even vary based on country to country. So there are various laws, whether it is labor law or whether it is intellectual property law, how whether it is human rights law violations and all those stuff. The third block is talking about laws. Okay. And fourth block is again going into planning. Like all other subjects, fourth block has got a lot of repetitions in general in most of the subjects, right? So this is also going back into planning, but there are few diverse aspects, like other than just about human resource within it. It also covers certain responsibilities as an organization, like corporate social responsibility. Like, as an organization, what is the social responsibility that is humans on other side of the organization does have, right? So those kind of the fringe topics are also are covered in this, right? So this is how the entire HRD as a subject. Now we are going into the first aspect of human resource planning. Okay. So now going into planning. So first unit, it does have mainly talking about what is this planning, right? Because we are talking about the planning, and this is where we are starting. So this talks about what is the planning and how exactly this planning is important as far as the overall organization is concerned, strategy is concerned, right? So that is where it starts. And it also introduces some of the basic terms, for example, talent inventory, how forecasting happens, etc., etc. So we will actually understand some of the important terms here from the planning point of view. Okay. So now to start with, what is human resource planning? Okay, so what is human resource planning? Human resource planning is to anticipate and respond to the needs emerging within an organization and outside the organization. So basically, there is a need that is going to come. You are going to get a project which is of this size. So you might really require people to perform that. Or there is a new order that came in. So somebody told that, okay, yes, I need actually, 1,000 cars that as a demand that came in the market. Now I need people who could probably work in my factory to actually manufacture those cars. So there is a need that came in, and in order to address this need, you require some kind of a planning to be done. Okay, so planning is one step before actually implementing that, right? So the things are still not there. So what you are actually doing, you are trying to plan what is the requirement that you have within the organization and outside the organization, and you are trying to accumulate whatever the human resources that are required. Okay, it also ensures right mix of employees and skills. Basically, it's not just that whoever passes by your company, you hold them and put it into your company. No, you are not just adding numbers. You are adding employees with right skills. You're going to interview, you're going to actually, vet out whether he is the right candidate or not, and then take it. So there is a process that is involved in doing it, right? So that is what is human resource planning is. So there are few terms which are explained in detail in this. Okay, so those are like, there are 4 things that are interrelated activities. One is talent inventory. Okay, I'll give you a very high level definition of it. Anyway, we are going to discuss later as well. What is talent inventory? The name itself suggests it is inventory of talent. What is the talent that we are talking about? We are talking about human resources here, which skills they have. It's like, I have 1,000 people who knows Java. I have 2,000 people who knows Python, right? So basically, I have an inventory of people, that is inventory of people with so and so talents. That is what is talent inventory, right? And workforce forecast. Again, this term is very, very evident. You are actually forecasting what is your requirement. You are saying, okay, now so talent inventory only saying that I have 1,000 people with so and so skills. Workforce forecast says that in next 1 year, you would require 2,000 people with Java skills. That is what is the forecast they saying. It is a prediction of your future requirements. Okay. So now action plans. So now you have talent inventory, you have forecast. Now you require some kind of action to be done to meet that forecast, right? You might have to do recruitment. You might have to train people. You might have to transfer people from one location to other location. Let's say that, okay, I have 1,000 Java requirement in Pune location, but I have people here in Bangalore. So I might have to transfer some of the people there, right? So that is how you could meet as well. So it's not just about recruitment, right? So you require some actions. That is what is action plan, right? And control and evaluation. So all our subjects are very systematic and scientific. Hence what it means is, you require some kind of a feedback loop, so that to give an assessment that you are moving towards goal, whether whatever predictions that you made, are they coming true, or are there any correction that needs to be made, right? Whatever the actions that you are actually trying to take, is that what sufficient enough to actually meet your forecast, right? All those controls and evaluation is the 4th aspect. These are the 4 aspects. Okay, so anyway, talent inventory and work forecast, we are going to actually go into next level of details in the coming sections. Okay, so now we are going into strategic business and workforce plan. Okay, so here what it is doing is, some of this particular section name looks very, very odd, but ultimately what it is saying is why planning is important. That is what it is trying to say, right? So why planning is important? Okay, there is a obviously without any plan, right, how you can be successful. So to be successful, planning is very, very important. It doesn't mean that if you plan, you are going to be 100% successful, but it is like you are trying to forecast what is going to come and you are trying to take action well before you are there in that particular situation, right? It gives that sense of control for you overall as an organization. It's not that you are leaving it to the fate. May I will aram say I will go and recruit 1,000 people now. I'll see if the project comes well and good. Not like that, right? It is not you are leaving to the fate. You have that sense of control, right? And you also have some kind of goals defined for your management, saying that, boss, this is how we are actually going. This is what is our objective. You need to actually move towards that. So all this planning would actually give those objectives for people. Okay, and obviously control mechanisms can be kept to meet those particular objectives. So this is why planning is important. Okay, so these points are very generic for any kind of planning for that matter, which is applicable for even workforce related plans as well. Okay, so there are three types of plans which are possible. One is strategic, the second is operational, and the third is tactical. Okay, we are not going to concentrate on operational and tactical plans. We are going to mainly concentrate on strategic plan in this particular block, because if you remember, the second block is on management. So operational level planning and other things would actually go in that particular second block to some extent. Maybe that is the reason why operational and tacticals are not talked in this, right? What is strategic planning? Strategic planning is nothing but you are talking about future strategy. It is a long range. You have, as an organization, you have a strategy to execute, and you are talking about that long range strategy. You're not talking about now, or even now could be part of your strategy, but it is not like you're reacting something that is happening, right? So you're actually putting the vision, strategy, and all those stuff. So there should be a substantial commitment for resources for take. So basically, this strategy is going to be important from a whole resource point of view, right? Because ultimately there is a organizational strategy which is defining that I want to go here. So this commitment is going to be very important as a strategy, so that even human resources could be planned so that you meet that particular strategy. Okay, so this is something which is this strategy planning is going to actually give you some kind of a big fundamental change to the organization. If you plan your right strategy, you are going to actually have a big change as far as the entire organization is concerned. So it's not just about strategy. One fine day, somebody, 4 or 5 people accumulated and they formed the strategy by their own. No, it is also a methodical process. What it means is it is actually scientific nature. It requires data collection, it requires analysis, it requires proper reviews from various managements. So strategy goes through the same life cycle as most of these scientific processes. It collects data. Based on the data, you're going to actually do the analysis and say that this is what is the right strategy for me. This is where I need to be in next 1 year. So such kind of things would actually come out, right? So even from the, so for example, some of the strategies which are very, very impacting to the human resource things, right? I mean, there could be various strategical items. Just to give you an example on some of the strategies which will have a huge impact. For example, based on your strategy, you're trying to actually acquire a business. There is a business that you are going to acquire. So you're going to get a lot of human capital, whatever that is associated with that business. Or else you want to actually go into a new business, you're making investment in it, right? If you want to actually go towards that business and do that, you require skills which are associated with that new kind of a business, right? So you need to actually do a lot of recruitment. So those kind of things would actually have a lot of impact as far as the entire human resource are concerned, right? So there are a number of other examples as well. But so intention is to actually tell how strategy is very, very closely related to the human resource here. Because in the coming section, the name of human resource planning itself changes into strategic human resource management, something like that. So there is a strategy that is coming into the name of it. So we'll talk about it later. But anyway, what is the process that generally company would actually have? when they come, when they actually do the strategic planning. We already talked about saying that strategy planning is very scientific in nature. So there is a process which is defined. It has to go through that process, right? So first, you should be very clear on what is your company philosophy, what you want to do, what you don't want to do, right? So for example, in IT services based company generally sticks to services related philosophy. They would not really venture into making a new product, right? So if they are doing it, they are changing the philosophy of the company itself, right? It requires a different thought process when a philosophy is being changed, right? So first is defining the company policy. Second, formulating company. That means you are identifying the exact vision, objectives, and all those stuff. Okay, you are making what my company is going to do in detail in the next level, right? Philosophy is a very high level philosophy. Now comes the vision, the the next level of details of that philosophy in the form of objectives for your company, right? And then what exactly is your company's strength and what is your weakness. Okay, so that is the third step. The fourth step is designing the organization. What it means is you are actually restructuring your organization processes. You are trying to actually change things within the organization to really suit for your purpose, and also it aligns to your strengths and weakness, kind of a thing. Okay, and then you are actually putting strategies and objectives for each of those structural elements or units and other things, whatever that you would have actually recognized. Okay, and final step is to actually implement those strategies. So this is a typical process as far as the strategy planning is concerned. Okay, so what are the benefits out of strategic planning, strategic planning? To some extent, we understood what exactly the workflows planning or in general planning really offers, right? First thing, why you do all this strategy? Because you want to grow. First and foremost important point is you want to grow. That is the reason why planning is done. So that is the main advantage, right? And you are trying to secure your future. You don't want your company to actually go towards the wrong dangerous plot by your competitor and then trounce, right? Or even environment could have posed certain problems, so you don't want your company to go down. So you want to actually avoid the danger, okay, by seeing the future well. To change very quickly, you do things in a quicker way rather than when it comes uh, to the nth moment. Okay, so basically it is not like our exam preparation where we are doing at the last stage. So you need to probably strategize much early is what they actually say. Okay, so one way to overcome this problem is plan wide range of people. Okay, so this is an irrelevant point, but this is a okay. So this is about what are the advantages of strategic planning. Okay, so now coming to the questions, just going back so that people understand what type of questions that would come. Okay, out of whatever that we spoke until now, there is only one important part that you need to remember, that is definition of human resource planning. The things that we talked about, which is why we need to plan, okay, and what is the strategic planning, etc., were never asked. So basically, important question here is definition of human resource planning. But having talked about human resource planning for so long, I think we should be able to define it very easily. Okay, so now we are going into the next important topic. So this is a question that was asked. So now I think pay attention. We are going to talk about one of the question which was asked before, which is relationship of HR strategy to business strategy. Okay, it's not that it is a very important question. It was asked only once. Okay, so basically the thing that here wanted to talk about is, see, we talked about strategy. Okay, we talked about human resource planning. Okay, so now what we are actually talking about is See, there is bits and pieces of business strategy that was talked about, right? When we are talking about HR, human resources, we were saying that business strategy is going to drive a lot of things as far as the HR strategy is concerned, right? So there is a relationship between business strategy and the strategy of human resources that you are going to put, right? Ultimately, this planning of business strategy is going to impact your planning of your HR strategy. Okay. First thing, first relationship, or rather, what you need to understand here is when we talk about business strategy is all from top to bottom, right? Basically, how you are going to think business strategy, you are going to think business strategy from the point of view of what exactly the business is required, how we are actually, position ourselves in the market. From there, I'm going to say that, okay, yes, now how I should structure my organization. Now I will come, what should be the responsibilities of these individual structural elements. And then I will go to, okay, yes, in order to execute this function, what they require. So business strategy is always top to down. Okay. Whereas, okay, now when it comes to execution of it, it is always from bottom to up, right? So you're going to actually see what is there in your resources, okay, and how to make them work. And then you will come to the top, right? How you are going to align their goals so that they can meet your capability or whatever that is required, right, for the organization. And then you will actually keep it. So planning is from top to bottom. Execution is always from bottom to top. So when you execute it, you will always see from bottom to top. When you actually see planning, you are going to plan from top to bottom. So both arrows should actually meet. Okay, so anyway, so now the second part of it is there is a concept called as moment of truth. Okay, it is going to come later in the other units as well. So what it means is moment of truth means nothing but when you are actually done something. Okay, so you did something, the feeling that an employee would have at that point of time is what is moment of truth. Okay, so it's that feeling, whatever the realization or the feeling or the emotion or the thing that would actually strike immediately to the employee is what is moment of truth. Okay, so now so if an employee should act a moment of truth, he should have capability, opportunity, and motivation. So if employee required to be experiencing the right moment of truth, right, that kick, whatever that he would get out of it, he should have three things: one, capability; two, opportunity; three, motivation. Okay, so remember these things. It is called as a people calm, where if employee needs that moment of truth, that kick, okay, that kick, when he does something, that kick would come if he has got capability, if he has got an opportunity, and if he has motivation to do that. Okay, these three things would actually be resulting into the right kick. Okay, so now the other two. So ultimately, when it comes to your human resource related aspects, so this people calm really, so one of the objective of this human resource department is to enhance that people calm, right? So basically you need to have right resources with right capability, and in the organization you need to have opportunities for them so that they actually get this particular capability be utilized, right? And parallelly you need to develop required motivation for people to do that. That means you need to put right rewards, right structures, and all those stuff. Okay, this is what is about enhancing the people calm, right? You require human processes so that you are going to enhance overall people calm. Okay, so when you're talking about motivation, you are going to talk about rewards. When you're talking about capability, you're going to talk about trainings and all those stuff. right? So when you're talking about opportunity, you're just seeing whether you have the right projects. If you don't have right projects, no point keeping in those particular people. Then you might actually plan it in a different way for them, right? So all those things would come as the need for enhancing the people count. Okay, so the other aspect here is high performance teams. Okay, so we need to see ultimately when we are talking about enhancing this moment of truth or overall the people calm aspects that needs to be an thing, right? We are talking about ultimately people who are performing well, right? So there are certain practices, work practices that we talked about as far as high performance teams. So this part is something that we already spoke in few of the units earlier, right? Even in OB, there were few team related aspects on how a performance team would actually behave. Even in OD, we have, it is the same thing that we have here as well, right? A typical high performance team, how they will actually do, they will, so first thing, pushing responsibility down to the employees operating in the flat. So basically this point is nothing but empowering the employees. So the team is empowered, they will be able to self manage. That is the point that it is actually saying. The second point, emphasis on the line managers. Managers are going to be important. So they are the ones who are actually trying to drive things for their particular teams. They are giving goals, clarity of those particular goals to them. They are trying to set the ground rules. All those points are coming from your line managers. They themselves are acting like a human resource managers when it comes to the team. So they are taking care of whatever the team is required, right? Instilling the learning as a priority in the organizational system. So people are continuously learning within those particular teams, right? Decentralizing the decision making, making them autonomous, self-managing teams, linking performance measures. You are having proper reward-based systems. They are being rewarded for whatever that they are trying to actually do. Okay. So to meet their requirements, workforce plans must be outcomes and consistent to the overall. So what this point is saying here is, first of all, to meet your business plans, your workforce planning should be in sync with whatever the business plans are. It should not so happen that your business strategy says that I want to expand business in cloud, or rather in artificial intelligence, and you should not go and recruit some other skill, right? So basically your business plan and your resource management should be aligned. Okay, so, and obviously it is not easy to procure right people. So having said that, yes, you have a clarity on what we require, right? But it is not easy to acquire those right people. Okay, first thing, I mean, your forecast itself is a problem. What is the definition that you have as right people itself is a problem, because technologies are changing so fast. In AIML, I mean, you're saying that, okay, I want to actually expand my organization in artificial intelligence, and you start recruiting a guy who has got certain a particular framework like Spark, or I don't know. So these are technical terms anyway. So some technology which is aiding the artificial intelligence, and finally realize that now that technology in the artificial intelligence is like obsolete, right? Now no more it is deep learning, there is some fried learning or whatever it is, right? So basically you came up with a new technology which needs to be recruited. So it is rapidly changing, right? And there is a frequent changes in the external forces. So it could be like you have new norms in the country that would be coming, right? It could be some demographic changes and all those stuff. These kind of things would actually impact your procurement of people, right? Two key elements which should be examined for any planning is forecast and action plans. Basically what your forecast really talks about, what is that your organization require in future, and how you are going to actionize. These two are going to be very, very key. Okay, so that's all about the relationship between human strategy to business strategy. Okay, so now we are going into talent inventory. The name itself suggests, as I explained before, it is talking about maintaining the inventory of people which are there in your organization. That is what is talent inventory is, right? So it typically does have number of people that are there within your organization, plus their skills, their interests, their experience, etc., etc. That is what it actually maintains. Okay, so generally what you should be maintaining, how you need to maintain, requires certain fundamental questions. So there are certain fundamental questions like, okay, what is that inventory should have? Do you really require skills like technical skills, or do you require hobbies to be captured? What your talent inventory need to have, right? So what exactly top management is looking in this particular inventory, how your forecast is going to take it from this inventory. Those are some of the questions that generally organization will pose to design their technical inventory, the talent inventory, basically. Okay, you can go through those questions. Those questions are very, very self-evident. So talent inventory is another question that came. It came twice, long back though, not really recent, but it came. Okay, so now we are going into, I mean, obviously this talent inventory needs to be updated frequently whenever there is a new training that happens, whenever you are recruiting new people, people are getting promoted, right? And at the same time, considering that this does have a lot of people related information, privacy needs to be taken care, privacy aspect needs to be taken care. Okay, now we are going into forecasting, the next point, right? So after talent inventory, we are going into forecasting workforce supply and demand. Again, name itself is self-evident. What it is doing, it is trying to forecast what is the supply that an organization require. Okay, so there are two aspects into it. One, you need to anticipate what kind of requirements are coming, okay, from internal and also external to the organization. So what is that in this year I'm going to get, or what is that in this quarter I'm going to get? Okay, so that is what is one thing. The second thing is organizational demand for various types of employees. So maybe in your organization right now, I am expecting my software engineer to just code, but tomorrow I will say that, boss, you are not only a coder, you need to actually write unit testing as well. You need to do testing as well. So my job definition for a software engineer has changed, right? So similarly, I have a new equipment in the factory. I might have to actually, have new demands for that particular new equipment. So those kind of demands would also have certain forecasting. I mean, those would also add to the forecasting things, right? So so there are two paradoxes as well, okay, as far as this entire forecast is concerned. So forecasting, lot of times it is like a finger in eight, okay, where there is no specific methodology, because future is future, it is always uncertain. So there is nothing like a concrete mechanism where you can do the future. Okay, I'm hearing noise somewhere, I don't know. Okay, so future is future. So you require to actually, there is always.
Justin, can you please go on mute, Justin?
Okay, so basically, as I said, one paradox here is we are talking about forecast. That means it is like almost like astrologer, you are actually predicting the future of the company. So it could always be not so accurate. Things would actually change, right? And so sometimes what could also happen is you predicted something and you did something. And sometimes what happens is you anticipated that there is some project that is going to come. You got 1,000 employees now. Okay. That project didn't come up. That project never came. But suddenly you found the unexpected some other project picked up, and whoever you recruited, they got really, inducted into something else, right? So your overall forecast went fine. Your forecast of my 1,000 people requirement fulfilled, but you forecasted thinking this will happen, but something else happened which sucked in these 1,000 employees, right? So having your right forecast doesn't mean that you are seeing the future in the right way, right? So basically, it is sometimes it could prove whatever the forecast that you gave, even though it went wrong, it could be useful and get sucked in somewhere else. So these are some of the problems with the forecasting, or rather paradoxes in the forecast. Okay, so now we are going into external workforce and internal workforce. Okay, so why exactly, what is external workforce? So it is about you exploring what are the how exactly I can leverage the external labor market so that I can get new workforce. Okay, internal workforce, what exactly I have internally within the organization. That is the only thing. Okay, in external workforce is the workforce which is external, which I generally look at when I have attrition to address, I have recruitment to be made. Okay, then only I will go and check for the external resources. Okay, and I have a new skill that needs to be, brought into my company. Those are the things. In case of internal, how exactly I will know about internal? Talent inventory is going to provide me that view. Okay, and it is also that I'm going to check internal if I want to actually make promotions, right? I want to check who is going to be my next manager. So then I will actually go and check internal workforce. Do I have a material within my company who could become next manager, or should I actually go out? Right? First, I will check internal. Okay, so I am going to check top quality employees and say, okay, yes, I recognize these are my future diamonds. So let me actually give them extra training, make them shine, right? So that I can prepare next set of leaders, something like that. Right. So those are the some of the things that you do with your internal workforce. Okay, now going into workforce demand. Workforce demand is nothing but, it's another term that you could actually say as forecasting. In case of forecasting, it is mainly concentrating about the future. Here, demand is just concentrating on the term where you are saying that, okay, yes, this is what is the thing that I would want, right? So, but nonetheless, like it is like supply forecast. It is simpler than, it does have two types of forecast. One is supply forecast, and the other is demand forecast. So basically, supply forecast is nothing but what is available in the market. Demand forecast is nothing but what is your in demand, right? Demand. So obviously, assessing what is available is simple because you could actually get that particular pulse in the real time. Demand is you're talking about future, hence it is subjected to all the paradoxes that we talked about. Okay, so these are two types of things. Supply forecast and demand forecast, right? So demand forecasts are subjective. Right? Each organization must be able to identify important variables, how to forecast, what is their forecasting strategy, how they are going to check whether their forecast is true or not, all those things. Some dramabazi is there, so they will have to go through all that drama to get their demand forecast right. It is little complex when we talk about demand forecast. Okay, so trend analysis procedure. Okay, trend analysis procedure is something that you are going to follow as one of the process when you talk about forecasting the workforce demand. So I already told that demand forecast is tricky when compared to supply forecast, right? So there is some drama that company does on a whole to see whether to get this demand forecast right, right? So that is one of the element in that process is trend analysis procedure. Okay, what it does, it is trying to assess what is the current trend, right? So based on current trend, I am going to predict that, oh yeah, I'm going to get business in, I need actually more, I need to manufacture more cars, because I see that the trend is people don't like to travel in the public transport because they are worried about catching cold or COVID or whatever it is. Now they are buying more cars. So that means in next quarter, I need to actually manufacture 100 more cars or 1,000 more cars, right? So basically you are analyzing the trend, and based on that you are predicting your forecast or demand forecast, right? So you are, what you are going to do first, appropriate business factor. What is the factor that is going to be done, is mainly impacting it? What is the historical record of that factor, right? And if I have to meet that, what is the productivity ratio? Basically, how many cars my employee can make, right? Each employee, can they make one car in 2 days? Based on that, how many employees that I would require, right? And then I will keep the trend, see the trend, see past, see future, and project for the target year. Okay, so those are that is the trend analysis procedure. Okay, predictor selection. The name itself says the other part of this workforce demand is selecting what is your predictor variable. What is the variable you are going to use to predict, right? So what are those business factors? Am I going to actually check? So in order to understand how many cars that I need to make, do I have to actually check people's sentiment, or do I have to check how exactly COVID is going to increase over the time, right? What are those predictors, variables, which is going to impact? Okay, so based on that factors, I'm going to do the trend analysis. Okay, that is what is the predictor selection. So there is a procedure that you follow to select what is the right predictor. That is like, you will find what is your nature of business, right? And then you actually see in the environment, like what kind of those variables which are going to impact your nature of the business. And based on that, you will see what is the required stuff, right? So basically that is what is predictor variable here. Okay, and next is historical and project relationships. Okay, so I mean, I think this is very simple, where it is talking about selection of a business factor is only first stage of projection process. Most important thing here is quantitative understanding of the past. So you are just looking in the past and making sure that your future prediction is accurate. That is what it is trying to say. Productivity ratio. You need to understand an employee, how many cars he can make it. Then only you can say that if I require 1,000 more cars, I will require how many employees. So this is like simple mathematical thing that we would require. Productivity is nothing but what is the output of a particular employee computed over the time. So like in a month, a typical employee, how many cars he's going to manufacture, something like that, right? So projecting workforce requirements. Okay, so it is about, based on the business factors, based on the project productivity ratio, you are going to predict how many employees I am going to require. That is what is projecting workforce requirement. How accurate must demand forecast be? I mean, if possible, I require it very, very accurate. It depends on what is the flexibility of the company and the staff. So even if my factors go here and there, if my workforce is very flexible, then I can easily mend my things, right? Right. So, and obviously, what is the planning period, quality of data, forecast, etc., would actually matter, and they will all affect the forecasting thing. Okay. Next, also integrating supply and demand forecast. We talked about supply forecast, demand forecast. Supply is what is available in market, what demand is what you require. Both needs to be aligned. You need to understand meaningfulness of data by putting these two things together. Okay, matching forecast results with the action plans. Based on whatever you forecast, you need to do the action. That is what it is saying. Okay, this completes unit 1. Okay, so quite a lengthy one. Okay, so but actually speaking, not much of a content within it. Okay. Now we are going into next unit. Okay. We are going into unit 2, which is again talking about the similar aspects, but it somehow come to the block 2 related introduction. Okay. Ideally speaking, it should actually stick to human resource planning, but it goes into human resource management and gives a little bit of introduction on human resource management. Okay, and why it is called as strategic human resource management. Okay, and then again comes back into planning. Okay, so in this, the first and foremost important thing is understanding the definition of this strategic human resource management. Okay, that is one definition that came in. Okay, and it is not very important, it came once. Next, okay, how HR is integrated with the strategic planning. To some extent, we read in the other unit 1 as well, but here again it will come where HR being integrated with the overall strategic planning. Okay. Okay, and then benchmarking HR practices and all those stuff. Okay, so going into first thing, which is definition of it. Okay, what is, see, the pattern of planned human resource development and activities is intended to enable organization to achieve its goal. So what we are actually saying, planning your human resources is going to make sure that your organizational goal is met. So it is strategically very important for that goal to be met. If you don't have people, what you are going to actually execute as an organization as a goal. Hence, instead of just chumma calling human resource management, now modern systems want to emphasize that this is actually a very critical part of strategy. That is what they want to emphasize. Hence, they added the word called as strategic human resource management. Okay, there is nothing fancy about the term, it is same human resource management, but because of its importance to meet the strategy, the term strategic human resource management came into existence. Okay, so HRM is critical, right? Identifying, analyzing external threats, opportunities, etc., is very crucial for the organization. HRM not only throws light to the external, it also throws light what you have internal to your company as far as your human resources are concerned, right? So it increases the competitiveness of your entire org, capacity of your org, right? It can help you to transform your organization because you know what is there, what is to be required, and how to bridge the gap, kind of a thing, right? It is going to increase the performance of people, it is going to satisfy the customers, stakeholders, etc., right? All these things is to emphasize that human resource management is critical and it is strategic. Hence, it is strategic human resource management. Okay. So this is a new word or a thing which says that you need to look your HRM processes in a much more strategic way. So that is the definition of this strategic human resource management. Traditional personnel department is both physical, psychological, separated from a real work of the organization. Whereas strategic view, beside the function of hiring, training, paying the benefits, many organizations are developing new structural and cultural patterns to meet the competitive demands. So now, not just about traditionally hiring, traditionally training, traditionally paying the benefits to the employee. Now things are also about how you need to organize your entire organization. It's structurally divided. How your organizational culture should actually evolve. So all these also coming and playing the part. Okay, and your HR role is becoming more and more challenging and more strategically important as far as organization is concerned. Okay. So there are multiple approaches when it comes to this HRM, okay, or rather strategic HRM. Okay, first approach is when you are actually talking about how a human resource management needs to happen, right? The first approach is universality approach. What it means is nothing but there are certain motherhood processes where somebody says that employees need to be motivated, they need to be trained, they need to be paid appropriate, they need to be autonomous. These are some motherhood statements which we actually learned in every subject, right? So what this theory says is every organization requires this universally true approaches. There are some, seven odd universally accepted things which every organization require. There is nothing special any organization really require. It is universally accepted that it requires high level of security. Employees need to be secure. You need hiring practices. You need to focus on decentralized teams or autonomous teams. You need to have right pay levels. You need to have training that needs to be done. These are some of the processes which are required. So HR needs to take care of all these processes. It is defining that HR, they need to concentrate on these 7 items because these 7 items are universal. Every organization require. That is what universality approach is. Okay. So for an effective HR, they require to follow these universal principles. That is what universality approach. Strategic fit perspective. What it says is, boss, it's not universal for all of them. You need to put things which aligns your strategy. That is what strategic perspective says. It says that if there is something which is irrelevant for your strategy, then you should not do it. For example, if they say that autonomous teams, no, my organization doesn't require autonomous teams. I am the leader who is going to tell them. Mine is more autocratic way of working because my organization strategy require that for some XYZ reason, whatever that XYZ reason is, then that is not applicable here. Right? So there should be an horizontal, vertical, and external fit. What is horizontal fit? Horizontal fit is it should refer to the consistency among various HR practices within the firm. So if I am doing something that needs to be relevant for my organization across all the units, my practices should be fitting well together. Vertical fit, what it means, it should be consistent with my overall business. External fit, it needs to be something which can fit to the external environment as well. So these fits determine whether my certain HR process is relevant to my organization or not. Okay. Now coming to the next approach, where is internal service provider approach, where HR is viewed as somebody who is servicing these internal units. They are not really a parallel organization, rather they are actually servicing the internal units. That means the customer of HR is nothing but one of the business unit. So and so business unit is the customer for this HR. Right? So and so business unit is another customer for the HR. So these units would actually tell what is the requirements they have, and HR is going to serve them. Okay. So it is within the serve. That is the view that internal service provider approach gives. Next is configuring approach. Okay. So it is like, it is again like universal approach. It is talking about the set of HR practices or any so whatever that is going to increase the competitive advantages, those are the HR practices that it needs to concentrate on. Okay. So basically HR practice is going to think like, for example, I require to focus on quality now. So that means HR practice would actually concentrate on quality circles. Okay. And I need to increase the performance or motivation. So I'm going to actually configure my HR in that direction, whatever that is required at that point of time. Okay. So it is kind of an extension to the universality approach. Basically, there are set of things that would be required as an organization. Here, where you are actually only thing that you are doing is the customization that you are doing is you have certain focal points, and those focal points are the ones which you are actually concentrating on and off. Okay, but the things are being taken from the overall universal approach, where okay, yes, there is, I mean, there are certain things that would be required as an organization. You are actually taking it from the same bundle. Okay. Only thing here is, I mean, you are just highlighting for certain areas and configuring those universal things for your own good. So there is no one concentrate. It is not uniform for all the organization. Whatever that the set of universal policies are there, they are not uniform. You are taking it from that particular bundle and you are configuring for your own purpose. That's what it is. Okay. So now going into resource based model. Okay, so resource based model is nothing but so when they possess resources that are valuable, very difficult for competitors. So here what it is saying is an organization, in order to stay unique, they design their services unique. They make people do certain unique things. So what it means is you have some unique set of resources who cannot find jobs elsewhere. That's what it might mean. So what it means is they are going to actually stay with you. At the same time, you have some novelty as far as your business is concerned, right? So that is what this resource-based model means. Okay, so now these are the various approaches. We talked about universality approach. We talked about strategic fit, internal service provider, configuring approach, resource model. Okay. So next is key elements. This is also asked once, not many times. There are 6 key elements when it comes to developing a HRM practice within an organization. One, internally transforming HR staff and structure. Obviously, to develop a HRM, you require to recruit HR people. That is what it is saying. Right? Or else you need to change or train them so that they become more efficient. Enhancing administrative efficiency. Overall, their efficiency needs to be improved. Okay, integrating HR into strategic planning. We always talked about strategy needs to be aligned. You need to have that integration. Linking HR practices with business strategy. Okay, so basically you need to have your goals linked with the business strategy. If they are misaligned, then it is gone. Right? Developing partnership with line management. You need to actually have a very close contact with line managers so that line managers can implement the actual thing, right? Basically, in case of teams, line management forms almost like an HR layer. Okay, focusing on bottom line impact of HR and measurement of that impact. Basically, you need to do performance appraisal for your HR as well, right? You need to measure their progress. You need to actually do some kind of performance appraisals. So now transforming HR staff and structure. So this is one of the things that we talked about in the above 6 elements, isn't it? First thing is about transforming HR staff and structure. So here this section is talking about the same. 2 things that is actually it is talking about. One is transforming HR staff. The second thing that it is talking about, transforming HR structure. Both are 2 different things. Okay, so how you can actually transform HR people? You are going to make them more skilled so that they can handle things better. They have ability to focus on strategic planning. If the skill is there, they will be able to plan things, right? Right? They should be able to do team building, quality improvement, all those stuff, right? And the processes by which firms have attempted transform HR is to strategic generalists. Okay, so from traditional specialist to strategic specialist, generalist is how they transformed, is what they are saying. A lot of firms did actually transform their HR staff from a very specialistic way. For example, people might be concentrating only on team building. Now, those kind of HR staff are actually transformed into more generalists who could actually deal with the overall strategical requirements of an organization, right? So that is what is the transformation it is talking about. So there are certain expectations that every line manager does have on HR. For example, they want HR to take care of performance and profitability aspects, right? So even though line manager do that, they actually have some expectations. Focus on solutions, not on activities. Initiate, lead, and facilitate change. Help develop global managers. So these are all expectations as far as line managers are concerned on HR. Okay, you can read through by yourself. But anyway, not so important from the question point of view, hence I'm moving forward. Okay, transforming HR structure. Here, this section is talking about how HR structure can be transformed overall, right? So whether it is, so some companies has got organized structure to realign roles to transactional fulfillment work, which is administrative role, or it could be a strategic role. So the overall restructuring of HR is what this section is talking about. Okay, how needs of a HR could be aligned with the business strategy and allow HR units to actually function. Okay. So finally, administrative experts have to completely rethink how they create value for the firm. So overall thinking on how exactly values can be delivered, etc., would play a role in terms of transforming this HR structure. Okay, they should, whole activities of whatever the HR can be done needs to be decentralized to some extent. So that is the reason why you actually restructure. But net to net, what I could see is in this particular section, there is more high level funda rather than any particular key element for you to remember. Okay, so but overall, what it is saying is it is all about you concentrating on transforming the structure of HR so that it meets your business goals. So that is what it is trying to deliver as a message. Okay, enhancing administrative ability, efficiency. I think this is also a very motherhood high level section which has no relevance as far as the question is concerned, right? So everybody understands what is the need for improving the efficiency, right? So how you are going to improve? You are going to improve by targeting the current processes, whatever that the process that you want to improve on. To target a process for improvement and then you improve, right? Administrative efficiency can also be enhanced by development of centralized HR services that are shared throughout the organization. So this is the only point which you could probably remember. So if you have a centralized HR as a department and all other departments are using that centralized HR, maybe the efficiency of that HR to administer the entire organization would improve. Okay. And you require administrative experts within that particular unit so that the efficiency is really high. So that is what this enhancing administrative efficiency talks about. Integrating HR into strategic planning. Okay, if I am not wrong, I think there is a question in it. No, there is no question as far as this is concerned. Okay, so integrating HR into strategic planning. Okay, there are two requirements of strategic, integration. First, the planning process, right? Basically, having the process getting integrated is one aspect. Okay, the other aspect is managers trying to play some role in that process is the other aspect. First of all, you need to have a process for strategic planning. When you have a process, you need HR managers to play that role. So these two things are needed to integrate HR into strategic planning. Okay. So generally strategic planning is done by top management, or there would be outside consultant who might help this top management to do it. Okay. But this exercise has to happen first to get integrated, right? So there is actually a mission statement that comes, goals and objectives that are defined, organizational strengths and weaknesses are defined, right? What kind of opportunities are there within the market and how market is going to actually affect your performance. All those threats would be analyzed. So there are set of things that planning would have, like mission and goals would be defined. You are going to analyze what are the threats, external threats that are actually coming. You are going to analyze the strengths and weaknesses. You are going to define goals and objectives, and then you are going to define the strategies. Once you define the strategy, now you are going to include, while you are defining the strategy, you are going to include these HR managers into this. So that is what is about this integration of HR into strategic planning. Okay. So it is very, very evident within the points of what is environmental threat, what is the opportunities, etc., etc., are very, very easy for us to define. Okay, there is nothing much as core points in it. Okay, it is all generalized, statements on how these things really work. Okay. So now going into the part which is the next one, right? Only one part in this particular thing which I want to go in detail is strategic integration of HRM. Okay, so we talked about planning process, where plan is actually various things, right? You are going to define the goals, you are going to define the objectives, etc. In a goals, you should also aim at something like what would be my impacts of this particular goal from performance measurement point of view, right? So basically all these things would translate into some HR related aspects, right? HR managers who are involved in discussing these particular things, they should be able to map to their particular goals and their particular strategy. Okay, so overall this strategy, the HR function will be a critical element in implementing process and also converting the strategical line items of business strategy mapping into the HR related strategy is where they play the role. Okay, so few points, various ways of integrating HR into a strategic decision process. One, the process of HR integration can begin by changing hierarchical position of senior HR, right? I mean, first of all, you need to have this HR in the part of senior executives team, which is trying to make this strategy. That means you need to give that position to that HR manager so that they participate along with that senior leadership. Okay, so HR, you should not keep it down, is what they are saying, right? So that person should have that position and he should have that voice so that he can actually tell from the HR point of view, right? So from when the strategy is being made, so he should have relevant power, so that while he is obviously when the business strategy is made, what kind of talent requirements that it requires, right? What should be the benefit structure, or how this is translated into the relevant HR related strategy. You should have relevant power so that you can trigger those activities across the organization, because all these things are not something that HR can do independently. They need to ask individual departments, individual units who could actually provide this particular structure to them, right? They should be able to have, they should have relevant power so that they can collect all the relevant data and also push certain policies down. Okay, that is what this integration of HR really means when it comes to the business strategy. That is where fitting business HR practices to business strategy comes into picture. Okay, so now we are going into section of fitting HR practices to business strategy. Okay, so there are actually three things where it talks about. First, how practices are like, first thing is human resource practices as choices. Okay, So what are those particular practices which really are like, there are six practice choices which are there as far as practice choices are concerned. First is staffing. Okay, so how HR, I mean, staffing should happen, right? This is one choice practice. The second is appraising. So how exactly appraisal should happen, performance should be calculated, goals needs to be set. 3, compensation. Okay, so basically how compensation to be given when it comes to this particular overall uh, appraisal is done. Okay, next is training and development, how training and development should happen. Okay, and how exactly work system should I mean how work design should be made. Okay, and how authority would really work, who needs to make decisions, who needs to be empowered, who doesn't, who should not be empowered, kind of a thing, right? These are something which are HR choice, which are called as HR choices, I mean basically objective of this HR practice choices. Okay, see the next one is that we are actually doing is strategic fit. Okay, so so how exactly this particular HR, again, it is going into the imperatives of how exactly strategic business principles are going to fit into the HR point of view. It's same as whatever most of the unit really talks about. Okay, and what should be the main priorities as far as the HR is concerned is the another aspect that it actually brings out. What should be priority for the HR? Again, the priorities for the overall organization would be, again be priorities. For example, people are the priority for HR, right? And customer satisfaction is the other priority, because business does have the priority of customer satisfaction, even that translates to HR here, right? Total quality management, quality needs to be taken care, profitability needs to be taken care. Okay, and you should have the best in breed when it comes to your business. So those are some of the high level principles. Okay, and so especially when it comes to this global business, there are actually, so when you are trying to fit your business into something which is as a global strategy, there are certain steps that an HR really follows. Okay, so it does have those particular steps as well. There are 5 steps that it follows. First step is identifying business principles, that is step 1. Step 2, what exactly are your strategic imperatives. Okay, so basically these are directly derived from whatever that the business principles that you have as the first basic principles, right? Going into the objectives, is what it means, right? How exactly these imperatives or objectives converted into internal statements which needs to be actionized. Okay, and then if I have to actually actionize as internal work items, what are the cultural aspects of it? Because we are talking about globalizing your organization, it talks about cultural change. Okay, so and the fifth and last step that talks about is implementing this particular special program. So that is what is it. Okay, and what I'm just trying to actually check what is the next important part in this thing, right? We also talked about measurement of HR, because you need to actually take care of HR performance as well, right? So benchmarking comes into picture when we are talking about measuring how HR is effective. Okay, so it does have 3 types of benchmarking. I think benchmarking as a term everybody knows, it is the same term. One is internal benchmarking, second is competitive benchmarking, third is generic HR benchmarking. Okay, so these are 3 types of benchmarking that is possible. Okay, so what is this internal benchmarking? First, it is just comparing things internally. So basically I have unit, if I have to benchmark my performance, I will check what is the right performance by comparing myself with the other unit within the same organization. Competing benchmarking, this is generally done in salaries. When somebody asks why salaries are low, they will say that in our peer group, we actually, pay decently. We don't really, we are not behind in our peer group. Basically, they are benchmarking what is the right salary by checking with their peers who are competitors, right? TCS might be comparing their salaries with Wipro, Wipro might be comparing salaries with Infosys, Infosys might be comparing salaries with the same people. So everybody is benchmarking their salaries and keeping it same. So that is what is the competitive benchmarking. The other one is generic HR benchmarking. So it is like generically done across industry. Okay, these are the sort of benchmarking that they do. It is more about understanding the performance and developing the measures. And in case if you miss that, okay, when you benchmark and you found that you are little less, then you will find the impact, how to bridge that gap, and you will actually put an action plan and make sure that you actually go and meet it, right? So that is what benchmarking HR practices are, right? So importance of HRM, I think we talked about all the while. So it is very, very important from the start point of view, and you require a very highly competent leader so that they can drive this particular HRM, right? All those things, like I think that's all about unit 2. So probably we can stop the recording. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, Praveen. Yeah.
Somebody can stop.